Hey, I want you to picture this for a second. I want you to picture it's 7 p.m. Your 6-year-old son is in the kitchen working on math worksheets. He's been at it for 40 minutes. He's upset. He's crying. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're thinking to yourself, is there something wrong with this kid? But here's what nobody's telling you. There's nothing wrong with him. There's something wrong with the system that has created that thought in your head. And right now you're treating your son like he's some entry-level corporate employee who's been handed tasks to clock in, sit still, grind things that he hates, and submit to constant performance evaluations. And when he zones out, melts down, pushes back, you assume he has some kind of attention problem. But he doesn't. He's screaming for the one thing that his brain is actually designed to crave right now, and that is play. Your kid wants to play. And it's not because he just is lazy and undisciplined and he's disobedient and there's something wrong with him. It's not like he's trying to skip out on the real work. He's not doing his job. Play is the real work. And the moment you understand that, everything about how you run your homeschool is going to change. So stay with me, because everything I'm going to show you isn't just a parenting philosophy. It's actually backed by neurological science, developmental science. And I think it's going to reshape the way you think about things. So let me quickly give you a framework. And I think you'll see where we societally have gone wrong. And just so you know, I'm not judging you if what I said is anything like what you've dealt with. And there's so many variations of it. Believe me, I've been a homeschooling dad for over 20 years now, and I've struggled so much with this, especially particularly early on in my career, my homeschool parenting career. It was a real struggle for me. So it took me a lot of time to figure these things out. I'm the last person that will ever judge you for struggling with this. Oliver and Rachel DeMille lay out what they call the phases of learning in their book called Leadership Education. Phase 1 is called the core phase. It's for ages 0 to 8. And basically kids learn yes and no. They learn family values. They involve themselves in physical work. And the most important part probably is the unstructured play. There's not really a place for formal academics in this phase in a child's life. And phase number 2 is called love of learning. It's for ages 8 to 12. And here you give your kids structured time for study, but you don't really structure the content that they study. You allow kids a lot of freedom to figure out what they want to study. And there's ways that we as parents can make things happen, make things more fun, make things more intriguing, more enticing, so that we're getting our way, but at the same time, kids feel like they're in control of it, they're making decisions, and everything feels fun and interesting, and they're just fueled by a whole lot of curiosity. So if a kid wants to study ancient Egypt for 3 weeks, cool. You want to study bugs for a month? All right, let's do it. And so as a parent, we come in and facilitate that, make that stuff interesting, and we provide the opportunities for these things to happen. The goal here is super important. It's not about ramming information into your kid's head. It's about igniting a fire in your kid. And if you handle it properly, if you do this with care, and you get all the pieces to kind of line up properly, your kid is going to actually grow a liking toward learning, because there's going to be a pleasant nature to it. It's going to be enjoyable. And then phase 3 is what you call the scholar phase. And that's usually ages 12 and up. And it varies a little bit. It's around puberty. Think puberty. Kids hit that maturation at different times, but roughly 12 years old. This is where the academics come in. This is where all the books, all the deep learning, all that stuff really comes into play. And if you've done the first 2 phases properly, you're going to find that your kid is going to be a bit more drawn to this phase. And if you're thinking this is just from one book, it's not just from one book, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Peter Gray has spent decades studying how children learn, not in the classroom, but in the real world, particularly in self-directed environments, or what Peter Gray calls play. And what he found and documented in Free to Learn, his book Free to Learn, lines up so beautifully with what the DeMilles talked about. Gray argues that children are biologically, evolutionarily designed to learn through play, particularly unstructured play. You can find videos of him on YouTube doing TED Talks talking about this kind of stuff. And he stresses a lot that this developmental phase, this drive toward play, is not something we should be trying to develop our kids out of, but it's actually something that's super important for their cognitive development, their social development. He gives examples of hunter-gatherer type societies where children were never formally taught really anything, and they played with one another, and they learned from their environment, and they became capable members of society. And so his core phase and love of learning phase equivalents are just really, hey, let the kid be. Let them be what they are actually designed to be. And they will learn the types of things they need to learn. He gives another example. He talks about how lions, when they're cubs, they play fight, right? Evolutionarily speaking, they need to play fight because they need to get good at fighting. Because when they become adults, they need to fight. They need to kill. They need to hunt. So they play at it. Zebras or gazelle, they play by kind of running away from each other, right? Like they run around. That's how they play. Why? Because biologically, they need that to survive. And that humans are the same kind of thing. Kids learn how to play in a social way. They play games, they make up games, they play house, they play dolls, they play with trucks, they play with action figures, and they use their imaginations and they play. And this is the kind of stuff they need because they're learning how to interact with one another on a social level. And they learn things about others, they learn things about themselves, they learn how to communicate, they learn how to conflict resolve, all kinds of amazing things that they actually need in the real world. And I'm going to get into that more in the tail end of this video. You'll see what I mean. Now, if that wasn't enough for you, talking about Peter Gray, there's also Gabor Maté. Gabor Maté is a world-renowned psychological trauma specialist, and he talks a lot about development in kids and the effects of stress on kids, the effect of trauma on kids. And he talks about these two things that kids really need, humans need. These are biological needs that everybody must have filled in some way, shape, or form. There's healthier forms and there's less healthy forms. And those are attachment and authenticity. With attachment, kids need to be successfully attached and connected with their parents. They need to have that healthy bond with their parents. And authenticity is the need to feel connected with your authentic feelings, your instincts, and your inner world. Kids try to figure out their inner world, and when that comes out, adults speak to kids, sometimes in really great ways and sometimes in really stifling and negative, traumatic ways. But when kids let out who they are, they have adults and exterior things speak to them. And this can leave quite lasting impressions on a child as they develop and into adulthood. And so you hear a lot of times in the psychology world, you hear about your inner child. That's because when you were a child, there were things that you started to believe about the world, because as you started to engage the world, things happen to you. It was voices being spoken into you, ideas and whatever, sometimes well-intentioned, sometimes not, whatever it is. But we as adults need to be very careful what we speak into the life of a child. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable. When you force a child into academic performance before they're really ready, when you make their worth contingent upon their compliance and their grades and their output, you put them in an impossible situation. They have to choose between attachment and authenticity. If they don't measure up and go against their nature, where they want to play, that's their nature, that's who they are, that's what they need. They got to give up that to sit still, sit in a classroom, take orders, do boring freaking work, because by doing that, they'll get the attachment. The authenticity of what they really need and who they really are and all that gets washed away. And when you're forced to choose between those two things, authenticity and attachment, you're going to choose attachment pretty much every single time. They learn to perform what you want rather than figure out who they really are. So the core phase and the love of learning phase aren't just good educational strategies. They're actually fundamental to allowing a child to be whole. Now, if we push this concept a little bit further and we talk about Lev Vygotsky, he was a developmental psychologist. He gave us the concept of the zone of proximal development, the ZPD. It's the zone where a student is pushed past their level of comfort into a zone where they really struggle, and they probably even need a little bit of kind of mentorship to fill in the gaps for them and encourage them along the way. But the DeMilles, they point out something I think that's really critical. Pushing a child who's under the age of 8 into the ZPD with forced academics is a disaster waiting to happen oftentimes. It doesn't build scholars in the long run. It teaches children that learning is a stressful chore controlled by outside experts. Jean Piaget says that young brains learn by interacting with the real world, by touching things, interacting with things, not by sitting and doing worksheets. And the neuroscience backs this up. Dr. Jack Panksepp, and I have no idea if I just said that name correctly or not, identified a hardwired evolutionary play system in mammalian brains. It's not optional. It's not a luxury. It's the primary engine for a healthy brain development. And when you force sedentary desk work on a young brain, you can trigger a lot of chronic stress on a child. Cortisol can flood the system, and that cortisol can stunt brain development. So you actually have 3 different disciplines: educational philosophy, developmental psychology, and trauma science, all pointing at the same thing. Leave the early years alone, protect, play, develop the relationship. The scholarship comes later, and it comes with much more impact when you allow it to take its natural course. So how did we get here? Where we're having to have these kind of conversations, and we as parents think that a child's schooling is their job, even at the ripe age of 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. It's their job, and they got to do it. They got to be disciplined, and we lord over them like that. The DeMilles described the system that we're used to as the conveyor belt factory model, and that it was produced not to create thinkers, but to produce compliant workers, the type of workers that would be great in a factory. The conveyor belt type education that we're used to teaches kids 3 things: copy, count, and compare. Copy what the teacher says, count your grade, compare yourself to the kid next to you. The result? Predictable, dependable followers. The leadership path that respects these phases of learning teaches something completely different. It teaches children to create, to value, to impact. And the result is also pretty predictable. It's responsible leaders. When you push kids when they're not ready into this like abstract thinking before puberty, survive by using rote memorization and fake comprehension. They survive by using rote memorization and fake comprehension. They just regurgitate things and they memorize things for a test. I bet a lot of the stuff that you learned in school, if not 90+% of it, you probably forgot it if you're just really honest about it, because you were surviving too. They look like straight A students. They look like they're geniuses. They look super smart. They look gifted. My kid's so smart. My kid's so that, whatever. But in reality, they just learn how to be really compliant. In The Self-Driven Child, written by William Stixrud and Ned Johnson, they talk about how there was a study done in 1960 to 2002. And what the study points to is that kids have been losing more and more over time their internal locus of control over their life and their direction. And the more that happens, the more anxiety kids develop over time. So we've created a system that develops kids who rely on external motivation. That they have to be externally controlled. And then we wonder why kids don't know how to take initiative and think for themselves. And I think as a homeschooling dad, when you start to piece all this stuff together, you just realize, wow, I took my kid out of government schools and I just started to replicate the whole thing at my house. And so what do we do about this stuff? Number 1, no academics under 8. Leave them alone. Play. Teach them right and wrong. Teach them family values. Teach them how to work physically, like physical work. Connect with your kids. Love your kids. Play without a parent helicoptering over them. Number 2 is structured time, not content. For kids ages 8 to 12, you want to have a good morning routine for study. But here's the key: is you want to give them autonomy over what they study. So you set aside the time to do the thing, they pick the thing. And you fan the flames. You help enable that. You create the opportunities. You buy the books that will fuel their passion. You create the environment. Number 3 is adopt the consultant mindset. So you're allowing your kids to have the freedom for all the way up to age 12 to choose what they want to do and play how they want to play and do all that. You're there to be their consultant. If they have questions about anything, you're there to consult. And number 4 is you want to go from being that type A parent to the type B parent. The type A parent's just super intense, super driven, super goal oriented. We got to get everything done. And you drill sergeant your kids. Type B parents are more trusting. They're more laid back. They trust that their children are going to be okay. They trust the process. And so what you want to do is you want to redirect the energy. That energy that you want to direct toward your kids, micromanage your kids, you need to direct that energy toward you. What are you doing? What are you spending your time on? Be type A on yourself. Be type B on your kids. And the reason why is you don't want to be the parent who does the old saying, do as I say, not as I do. You want to be the parent that the child can look at and say, that's what I want to do. You want to be modeling these things. You want to show your kids what it looks like to be a scholar, what it looks like to fall in love with learning, what it looks like to grow and develop yourself. Model those things and be type A with yourself. So instead of asking yourself, how do I get my kid to study harder? Ask yourself this: am I the type of man my children would want to become? Let me just leave it with this question here. What are they watching you do? What are you showing them as fun? Is it TV? Is it doom scrolling? Or is it reading, working on a project, starting a business? Do they see a man who can fail and be okay with it? Or do they see a man who's anxious about everything? Do they see a man who's checking his kids' grades more than he's checking his own growth? And that's the game. Stop treating education like it's a job for your child. Start treating it like it's a calling for you. Now, this is going to look different in every home, but if your kids are under 8, detoxify your home if you've had that policeman mindset. Start to have fun with your kids. Get rid of the academics, play with them, and just follow the protocol that the DeMilles talk about. If they're 8 to 12, you're going to want to start to structure time and back off a bit. Be a consultant. If they're already in their teens and they had a bad core and love of learning phase, which I totally understand, that's what happened with my oldest child, you're going to want to just really detoxify from everything. Just back off everything and have a conversation with your child about what education really is. Who does it belong to? Does the child's education belong to the parent and to the state, or does it belong to them? Let them know what you expect out of yourself moving forward. Let them know that you're going to start to change some things in your own life and that they have time to just start to figure out some stuff. They should probably start to look a little bit more like a love of learning phase, where they start to find some hobbies and some things that they want to fall in love with, right? And you back off them for a while and you start modeling things in your own life. That's exactly what I did. But no matter what, you're ultimately going to want to be modeling it. Doesn't matter what age they are, you want to model it. You go first. And if this stuff hit home for you, in the description below, there's a link to my school group, and it's for men. It's for homeschooling fathers. Whether you're the one that stays home and does the homeschooling, or you're the provider and you're with your kids in the evenings and on the weekends, and you're just trying to figure out how to be more inspirational to your kids. Now, I'll give you this fair warning. It's brand new. Don't expect a whole lot right now, but I'm in the early phases and I'm going to be building it out, and I think it's going to be really freaking awesome. And I'd love to have you in there as a contributing member. And as things start to grow and all that, I will remember you. All my first people, I will remember you. So come on in and we can encourage each other and give each other brotherhood and encouragement. Subscribe, comment. All of that stuff really does help me and my channel. It does. So if you could do, that would be amazing. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.